Hello, friends, and welcome back to another book chat. This is the third book chat, and today we are talking about Into the Wild, which I don't have my questions. So give me a second. And while you're waiting for me, be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed today's book chat, or leave a like if you enjoyed the book. It was a really long book, and that's how I aspire for my next book to be. Yeah, here's the book. Let me grab the question so I know what I'm talking about today, and this one will be way more correlated. That's the hope, anyway. These work? Missing any? Eh. Reading check. Analysis questions. Okay. This is it. Hold on, I'm almost done. The book was actually really good in my opinion, but there are things that I wish were different in the book. First one being Krakauer just inserts his own little snippets of information not entirely relevant to the story, in my personal opinion, and most of my class's opinion. Here's the book. Haven't seen it since the beginning, and the picture that I've been using is actually a picture found in Corinne's book, which is McCandless's sister, and she wrote a book after Krakauer did, explaining more than what Krakauer did. So there's a lot more to the story than what Krakauer told. So, let's see, what's the first one? How would you characterize McCandless's relationship with other people, specifically his family? McCandless's relationship with his family is relatively is terrible. It's just terrible because he doesn't like being told what to do. That's made clear in one of the other chapters. I believe it was like 16 and 17. No, 16 was when we get more information. It was 11 through 13 is when we get more information about McCandless's background. So he was an amazing entrepreneur. He made great money as a child just from doing the little things that he did, but as he got older, that didn't really matter to him. That's not what he was looking for. So I don't have anything written down on this page, so I have to come up with this off the top of my head. But he was an amazing entrepreneur in and of himself. He was stubborn, and whenever somebody told him what to do, he'd go ahead and do what he wanted anyway. He didn't actually care, and his parents figured this out. The one thing that my class and myself can kind of see from this family is they were really shallow, and the reason why Chris hated them so much was it mostly his mother's fault, even though it's arguably she was really shallow. But it was Walt McCandless, who is Chris's father. He was still in touch in a different way with his ex-wife. Like, he was still seeing them on his business trips that he would take every 2 weeks or so. So, don't mind me, I'm playing with my hair. So it was really interesting to see how he went about that, and it's just like he totally lost all respect for his father with whenever he wanted to. Anyway, I'm gonna throw on a hat because I feel like it, and it's sitting right there because I have some plans. So it's like, why on earth would he have Walt do that? Because it's like he's basically trying to support two families, but he's not being faithful to really either one, because he's being with both of them. I mean, great father skills, not great husband skills. No. Let's see, what other question could I do from just this page alone? Ooh, letters to his parents. That's something that's really interesting, that if you actually look back into the book, if you have the book, that is, you would acknowledge that McCandless has a interesting way of writing to his parents. Very monotone sounding if you were to actually try and read it out loud, which I probably didn't do a good job conveying when I read the book. But the way he went about it was like he was writing what he knows they want to hear, not like how he actually feels, because he doesn't like his parents. He doesn't want to be with them. He doesn't like the ideology of parents at all. And so it's like he doesn't he's just writing just to write it, not really to write to be excited or actually tell him how it is. Because nobody except for Corinne really had that strong relationship when he was still in Annandale and with his parents. But when he moved out, that was probably one of his best relationships he's ever had with any other person, is those strangers he met along his way as he was heading towards Alaska, especially Franz. I will get to him soon enough. He says that in one of the letters to Corinne that his parents are trying to buy his affection. Like, they want to buy him a car, they want to get him all this stuff. And it's like, you can't win that kind of guy's respect materially. It just doesn't work that way, because they're a pretty well-off family. They just are really good the way they are. So it's kind of sad to see how something like that plays out. Because it's like, in the end, he bought his own car, but he abandoned it because it kind of just held him back. So he just headed off on foot hitchhiking, even though he can't say he didn't really enjoy it. He loved hitchhiking, and he enjoyed all of what that brought for him. There's a lot to talk about in just one page. The people he met, like Jan, Bob, and Westerberg, those were good people to him. Like, they were really kind, they were considerate, and they enjoyed Chris's company, because we're not talking about some kid who's stupid enough to go to Alaska just for the fun of it. No, he was doing it for like a whole different reason, like a spiritual awakening. And this is a pretty intelligent guy. Like, he got like the best grades. He kind of planned things out. He knew what he was doing for the most part. And the fact that he died to something so ignorant and minute, it's kind of sad. We'll get more on that in a second. Here's a good one. In McCandless's journals, why might he have avoided using I when talking about himself? What I feel that why he did that is because it's more or less the fact that he's avoiding being biased towards himself. Like, when you use I repeatedly, it's like you're kind of making everything about yourself, even though it's more about what happened that day. So by removing the whole first person perspective, you're kind of making it like, this is my story, but I'm not entirely relevant to it, kind of thing. Like, I'm going to be unbiased towards everything, but I will still write down how I feel, but remain very much unbiased to how I feel about these things. There was Krakauer did something that I personally liked. In the story, he added criticisms of other people from past publishings of McCandless's story in the book. Why is this significant? Well, it kind of shows he's acknowledging it, and he's taking that criticism, and he's actually kind of using it against the people who said those criticisms. Because what he's doing is he's explaining, he's kind of debunking these criticisms throughout the story. So by placing them at random spots that are very relevant, you kind of realize it. Like, one of the criticisms is that he is obviously not going to survive out in the wild if he can't tell the difference between a moose and a caribou. But shortly after, Krakauer debunks the fact that that's not a caribou. It was just a really small moose. And so Chris McCandless obviously could deter the difference. It was just really small. So could have easily been taken as a caribou for the fact that and some of the bones are kind of scattered about. So it really took some researching into what the animal was to actually figure out that Chris McCandless was right. All those people criticizing him were wrong. So I like the idea that he kind of debunked some of the things people were saying about McCandless, because it was important. So that's the 1 through 10 done. That is okay. 11 through 15. Um, so what do I feel about the fact that Krakauer kind of inserted his own stories into this? While I kind of get what he's doing, he's comparing himself to McCandless. I don't feel like it's entirely necessary. You could make references to what you've done and understand it, but to make like two whole chapters about this, it's just like, why? Two whole chapters about yourself when this is a story about McCandles. You're kind of making yourself seem more is equally important, even though, yes, you survived the climb to Devil's Thumb, great for you, but I think you could have only did that in like a paragraph. Some of the things you're adding in is kind of like, well, but that's my own personal opinion because it's like what I think it does, though, to give him some credit for, is it kind of gives you an idea of what Chris McCandless could have been going through when he is bored, when he's not adding information into his journal, because most of the things we know about, well, Krakauer knew about McCandless, came from his journals and other sources. So, like, one of the things that Krakauer did in his time when when he was bored, he'd be smoking or reading. You could infer McCandless wouldn't smoke. That one was quite obvious. I don't think he had the ability to smoke anyway because he didn't have the resources, but he did have a lot of books to read. He had those with him. So we could infer that if he's not spending his time hunting or gathering stuff, he's obviously going to be reading or doing stuff to prepare for food. Um, Corinne finds out that. How does Corinne react when she finds out her brother's dead? She breaks down pretty hard, and we learn something fascinating about Corinne in class that's not mentioned in the book. Corinne gets married 3 times. The husband that's presented in the book is the second one. Not such a great guy. I recommend go checking out the book. I haven't read it myself, but my teacher had gave it good credits along with another girl in the class who had actually read it and borrowed the teacher's book. But second husband is a drug addict, so that relationship doesn't work out because of that. He was the worst of the three, if I'm correct, because of that. And they had their own business, so it was sad. And he seemed like such a great guy. Yeah, that's that story. That's that part. All right. Um, Chris find out about his father's affair. He was hitchhiking and he came to where his family once was, and people around there told him about it. That's how he found out, and then from there, that anger bubbled up inside, and then when he graduated, he just up and left. Only person who knew about that was going to happen was Corinne. Corinne. What are some faults to the family? Well, Corinne might be a little naive. She was pretty trusting in her brother. Walt, obviously unfaithful. Billy, which is the how Chris's mother is referred to in the book, we could say she's pretty shallow and really deserving of the spotlight. We'll talk about that when I get to the epilogue. But for the most part, Corinne is kind, Walt is hardworking, and so is Billy. It's just our faults are. But Walt's fault is basically what Candle's Chris looked at more than anything. Um, yeah. Let's see. Let's talk about the epilogue, because the epilogue was something we in class had a really good conversation about. While some people claim that it was so fake in how it sounded, but I thought it was a rather lovely gesture that the parents would go there. Well, at least the mother. Billy McCandles had a really moment being there, enjoying the place, but it felt so fake, and it was quite obvious Walt McCandles didn't want to be there. He was just there to leave the plaque and then go. And it's just like it seemed like Billy wanted the fame of it because it's like you're in front of cameras, you're in front of somebody who's writing the book. And apparently, in Corinne's book, she talks about how they were religiously going through the book and saying that they were these wonderful people. even though it was slightly gestured in here that they are not, and it is definitely gestured in Kern's book that they are not good people. They are very shallow. They don't really care that much. So while as loving as Krakauer's book may make them seem, it's kind of not real. Or my overall opinion of the book, great. Would I recommend this to other people? Yes, it's one of the few books in school books that I've read that I personally enjoy. Well, am I wearing a hat that actually looks like Itsukin's hat? Yes. Yes, I am. I made the hat myself, and I made Itsukin's hat as well. Would I say there are some issues with the book? All books have issues. It's just whether or not you choose to pinpoint them and accept them or just straight up decline them. Like, I totally don't like the fact that he adds other people's stories to relate to McCandless, has its own story to try and relate to McCandless. I personally don't like it, but it's there. It's his book. He does whatever he wants with it, just like I'm writing my own books. I'll do whatever I want with them. Excuse me. So, that's the book chat. And I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I hope you guys enjoyed the last episode, because, I was supposed to do 2 book chats for this book, but I didn't, because I procrastinate very hard. So if you enjoyed this episode, the first book chat, and probably in the last book chat for this book, please leave a comment down below telling me your personal thoughts on the book. What you think of it if you read and or listened to it, because the whole series is in the school reads, and keep your eye out. There's another one coming up eventually whenever we start the next read. Maybe some poetry, who knows. Until then, I'm Fate Tales, and if you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to smack that like button. It helps support the channel, keeps the motivation up. And if you really enjoy the content I make, be sure to subscribe if you're new, ring the bell to receive notifications for when new videos come out. And I hope to see y'all again in the next episode. Bye, guys.